All right. Welcome to episode 2 of Birds, Bees, and Beyond, a sexual health and wellness talk show with humor thrown in for flair. We are so excited to have you on this journey with us as we laugh, cry, rage, and learn together. And we're excited to start this with you. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about growing and grooming. Some things right up front. Thank you to royalty-free music on YouTube for our intro music. And then just as a reminder that Kay and I are not psychologists, we're talking about things from our experiences and from things that we have learned from life and want to share. So just kind of keeping that in mind that we are professionals of the life variety, not the degree variety. So we're not prescribing anything for you.
I mean, I took a psych class.
I mean,
couple
that's
few
fair.
of them.
Same. But just want to give that disclaimer real quick. As we are continuing, we want to make sure that we are building a community. So part of that begins with you getting to know who the heck we are. So we're going to start out with some fun facts every time we start an episode. So Kay, tell us about your fun fact today.
Yes, Miss Brandy. So my fun fact, first, I do apologize about my voice. You may hear I am recuperating from some lovely ick. Fun fact, I was born in Rock Springs, Wyoming, moved to California when I was about 3.5 or so. And so while I live a lot of my life as a California girl, on the go, I spent every summer until just about high school, junior high, somewhere in there, back in Wyoming with my grandparents and family out there. Best summers I ever have was running as a crazy little cowgirl. And let me tell you, the cowgirl is still pretty strong. So there's a whole lot of city girl and a whole lot of country girl going on over here. What about you, Miss Brandy? Fun fact, what you got for us?
Fun fact. Okay, so I am so excited. I have to share this with everyone. Kay got a glimpse before we started our show. So last time we met, I talked a little bit about my love of Dungeons and Dragons. So I have to admit that I'm a bit of a dice goblin as well. That we do get pulled into that occasionally. So I ordered a custom dice bag. It's this beautiful lilac oil slick outer fabric with this gorgeous rainbow batik and golden vine inside with this pretty cerulean blue cord. And it is huge. It'll hold up to about 700 dice if it ever gets that full. So it'll definitely be hopefully more than enough to hold my dice collection.
Now
So,
you said 700 dice, girl.
yes.
Do
700.
you use, I'm assuming you don't use them all at once?
No, so you only need technically 7 different ones to play. But as you go through, there are so many different pretty dice out there. And then you kind of want to collect them all. They're like Pokemon that you can hold. So gotta catch them all, right? And then there are dice that betray you. They roll really low and then you throw them in dice jail and you need replacements. So you become a dice goblin, whether because you like them and they're pretty or because out of necessity, because, betrayal. But
betrayal. Oh, the betrayal.
It's true.
I dated a few guys like that. You could just, throw them into the bag. Oh, the betrayal.
Oh, no. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get forward into our topic for today. So I mentioned we were talking about growing and grooming. So Kay, why
Mhm.
don't you start us off and talk a bit about what that means and why are we talking about that today?
Yes. So growing and grooming is just that. Like grooming, I believe, begins at a very young age, and it's influenced predominantly by who's raising us. Is it our family, our friends? Um, being able to be a stay-at-home mom, I learned so much that the first 5 years begin a foundation of child's learning. And during that time, we're introducing them to a lot of family members, friends. And I can think back at being young. I mean, I don't know if I can remember being 5, but being younger and meeting family members and so forth and so on, and being almost told that I had to hug certain individuals, certain cousins or uncles, and it was just expected. My family came from West Virginia, Kentucky area, so very family oriented, and you have everybody is your cousin out there. So just being told to ignore the feelings of, I don't know this person. Do I really want them in my personal space? And being told, oh, it's okay, and thinking, well, I don't want to disappoint anyone. I don't want them to feel uncomfortable. So I'm going to swallow that uncomfortableness and embrace these people and allow them into my personal space. So, just being young, I believe parents and our, what would you call them? They're not even parents, but just the people that educate us can sometimes put us in positions where, as younger individuals, we don't want to be. And we're taught to ignore that inside voice of, I'm uncomfortable. I don't really want to do this. And trying to educate um, our future generations that that kind of stuff isn't okay. I'm sure you can relate to that, Brandy.
Absolutely. So I Google things as I have the tendency to do. And neuroinstincts.com puts a really great definition out there that says, grooming is a manipulative form of behavior modification used to covertly tell the target how to behave. It connects positive experiences and emotions to the predator, narcissist, or psychopathic individual. And I think that the example that you're bringing up right now about growing in this and parents grooming children is really interesting because it's we're bringing up our children in a certain way because this is how parents were brought up and this is the culture we were brought up in. So this is something that gets passed down from parent to child, and folks don't necessarily know any better, but these are, harmful behaviors that folks can engage in if we don't learn differently.
I
So it's really interesting, some of the things that you're sharing.
now the definition, can you read that definition again? Because I think that was really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So it shares grooming is a manipulative form of behavior modification used to covertly tell the target how to behave. It connects positive experiences and emotions to the predator, narcissist, or psychopathic individual.
Okay. So I just want to clarify a little bit.
Yep.
Just because we, as parents, or our parents, or our parental beings have asked us to embrace a relative that we didn't want to, doesn't mean that that relative is a predator or anything of that nature.
Right. Yeah.
But what is happening is we are teaching our young ones that it's okay to feel uncomfortable, but still permit that behavior as acceptable.
Right. Yeah. I think it's really great to distinguish that because while it is possible for those parental units, just as people to be predators because no one's exempt, right? That it doesn't make folks inherently those bad things. Like I was sharing, it can be the way folks were raised. and you hug a relative. That's how I was raised. And my parental units are not predators. They're not psychopaths, you know? So those are some things that we just have to kind of understand, that it's not exclusive.
But I think what it is doing is when a child, and I have a stepchild who has high functioning autism on the spectrum, and the boundaries that he has established for his comfort level is very visible. When people approach, he will physically back away when it's too close. And as a parent, I don't want to force this child, he's not really a child now, but I don't want to force this individual to stay in a position or a place that they're uncomfortable. Now, because certain things have been taught to me in that realm of you hug this person, we almost swallow that uncomfortableness and we accept that within ourselves. So much so that I've been in situations where I'm uncomfortable and probably should have ran for the hills as a young lady in places that I should never have been. But you know, we're naive and this happens. But because people don't want to talk about it, or it's hush hush, and a lot of stuff within family, you know, I not in my family directly, but I have had conversations with others who there is a cousin or an uncle who touches inappropriately, and it's a known thing, but you still have to hug this uncle, cousin, whomever. It could be an aunt or whatever. We're not going to discriminate against, you know, what sex they identify as, but we are teaching our young ones to swallow that uncomfortableness. And this goes years and years and years beyond, you know, elementary school, high school, college settings, that we are grooming them to swallow that and think that it's okay to be uncomfortable and remain in those situations. And it's not. Oh
Right.
my gosh, it's not.
And it goes beyond family too. So that's where you learn it. But, you know, I've been in spaces with colleagues that were handsy, and even just what you would determine as platonic touches that I was uncomfortable with, but I didn't want to be rude. And it's my body. At the end of the day, why wouldn't I be okay with being rude to someone, or just shrugging off that hand off of my shoulder because it makes me uncomfortable? That shouldn't be an issue. And yet it was, because that's a learned behavior. So it's something that definitely permeates. And until that's recognized, it stays with you. And then, you know, to your point about it starting really with that, definitely go, you know, such and such family member wants a hug, go do that. I didn't even think that that was an issue. I didn't realize that until just a few years ago when I saw this random picture on Facebook or something of, it was like a mommy blog uh, picture from one of my friends who is a parent,
Mhm.
that had the caption of, as you're raising your kids, if grandma wants a hug and your kid doesn't, reinforce their bodily autonomy and don't make them hug grandma. It's okay. And I was like,
Allow
oh,
them to have personal boundaries.
right. It makes so much sense. But I was like, and I'm in my mid 30s. And that was just a couple of years ago that I was like, oh, well, duh. So it's interesting because, and one of those things that is a theme that really got us on this train for this podcast was the idea that our sexual wellness is not the greatest in this country, but also that the way our culture grooms and uh, suggests that we talk about some things and don't talk about others, it really disallows us from learning about things that aren't healthy. And just in
Yes.
general, we all need better personal boundaries, not necessarily even connected to this. So it's good to talk about
Well,
anyway.
and I think it's allowing everyone to have a voice now.
Right.
You have a voice. We're by no means out there saying that, how you want to raise your child is a bad way. However, allowing your child to set those boundaries, where it's going to lead us into a conversation of consent as well,
Mhm.
where I can think back to the moment when Brandy and I, both those light bulbs and the fireworks and everything went off when we were talking about doing a podcast. This 17-year-old is talking to me because, again, a 23-year-old is repeatedly asking for her phone number to go out. And homie, if she hasn't given it to you by the fourth or fifth time you've asked, you should get the clue. Why are we so concerned with not saying no? That we're going to offend this person by saying no? That we almost, in a sense, protect the violator and don't allow them to understand that they are crossing boundaries, that it's not okay at
Right.
all.
So let's actually officially transition from
Yeah.
talking about the growing part of the grooming
Yes. Yes.
into what does that grooming look like when you're older? So what's the difference in the relationship that you're just talking about and other
Mhm.
types of than what it looks like from parental units and family units?
Well, it can turn into also peer pressure. Grooming can happen as peer pressure. It can happen in the workplace where it is, almost, don't you want to be the cool person? Don't you want to be the one that goes along with this? And not allowing individuals to respectfully decline an invitation without guilt. If someone says no, that should not be followed up with guilt because they don't want to participate in something. But it can happen within friends. It can happen, like you mentioned, in the coworker environment, where someone is even just placing their hand on your shoulder, them not even thinking it, but it becomes offensive if you move away from them. So I believe even opening up conversations and having dialect and understanding that it's okay to say no. It's okay to put up your own boundaries as an adult. Just because something was taught a certain way when you were younger doesn't mean that has to be how you carry into your life, how you repeat these generational. I'm not going to call them curses because I've heard that too much. It's a generational curse. You don't have to keep repeating the same thing that happens within generations.
Right. And it's interesting, when you bring into it, that intersectionality of positions of power, right? It becomes even more complicated. It is one thing, I think, to what you're saying, if it's that person, let's talk, colleagues right now. If that person's like on the same level you are, and let's say at this point, they're maybe the same gender.
Mm-hmm.
So same gender identity. But what if that person who's doing the thing is your boss or your boss's boss or the
Yeah.
CEO of your company? Man, it turns into something different. And man, I can see that turning into something that's going to make you scared, right? Because if you are worried that you're going to get removed from your job by making a complaint, I've seen it happen. So
And
it's
it
it's a
again, it goes
scary
back
thing.
to it's easier for everyone else but the victim. It's easier to not make all these other people uncomfortable.
Right.
It's easier to be in a situation and not speak out against the norm, or everyone's going along with this, but who knows if there's other people out there that would like to speak out.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, being in a position, my very first job, girl, my first job in corporate America, I was so excited to have this amazing position for, an 18, 19-year-old. It was amazing. I was running a department and was so excited, and had a boss come in and verbally assault me with just the way he was talking to me. And I've never been one that went along with, as I got older, let me reverse that. As I got older and found my voice, people were not going to talk to me in that manner.
Yeah.
And I probably didn't handle it in the most professional manner, but the point was given across. And to me, every job and every position and every paycheck is replaceable.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that anyone can be replaced in the world. For gosh sakes, our president has a vice president and people that could take over for them there. And you can always find another position. I would hate for people to stay in a place where it's not safe for
Right.
them.
Kay, I want to challenge you on that.
Okay.
I want to actually challenge your privilege on that, because I think there are a lot of folks out there who can get into bad situations with folks who are experiencing that, that essentially that potentially sexual assault in the workplace, that can't lose that job. And if they can look for and find something else, um, our the state of our economy and things like that, folks can't necessarily be without a job all the time. So as much as we would like to think and say, uh, everyone, like, if you need to leave your job, do it. That is not always the case. If you've got to choose between keeping a roof over your head and dealing with what's going on at the office versus leaving the office and potentially losing that roof, I know a lot of people who are going to choose that roof.
And again, it is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that they have to make choices or make decisions that are going to leave them homeless, foreclosure, or anything of that nature. However, it does become a position of, is this something that you can tolerate? Is this something that you can live with? And I can almost think about relationships in marriages.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been married almost 9 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And, talking with friends, and there have been many deal breakers over the years with dating. And then you commit to a job, you commit to a relationship. Is there certain things that you can deal with? Because as adults, we obviously have more responsibility than we do as young teenagers, college students, and such. But is there certain things that we can live with? And nobody can make that decision for you.
Yeah.
However, you can still speak up for yourself if it is something that is going to harm you. I believe that, being in relationships in the past, I would have harmed myself more by staying in that position, whether it's a job or, yeah, our economy is it's a little wacky right now. But I believe there is always an option. And maybe reaching out to an HR department. I don't know. That's honestly, Brandy, that's not something that I've had to deal with too much. Is that
Yeah.
something you've had to personally experience?
Um, Not me, thankfully, but I know
Mhm.
some folks. But what I would say is that I am 100% with you when it comes to, I want folks who are in these positions to be able to make the choices that puts them in a safe space. Absolutely. I'm saying also that sometimes making that choice has to will put them in a different situation that is also not necessarily safe. And we have to like account for that and understand that, because not everyone's situation is the same. So that's all. And as you said, but also not just giving up, right? And continuing to look for ways to put that out there. So going to HR, continuing to document and make those notes every time things happen, especially if it's ongoing. Those are all great ways to get that going.
Now, I know I've been out of a traditional workplace for over 8 years. I know that prior to leaving, there were certain types of trainings that happened within the workplace,
Yeah.
whether they're received or not. That's another thing, that when coming from somebody else's background, these types of trainings in appropriate behavior in the workplace almost have become a joke to certain individuals. And I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it is something that they have experienced before. And the only way that they can deal with this type of education is to laugh and make fun of it.
Yeah. I will say, so the education that we go through, it is yearly. It is required by the federal government, and it is our yearly sexual harassment training. And it's gotten better over the years, I will say that. But you'll unfortunately always have those folks who think it's a joke. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Do you feel, Brandy, that our media now has a strong influence on grooming?
Absolutely. Definitely. I think that our media in general has influence over everything in our daily lives. So if you are someone who follows news and magazines and celebrities, the way our culture shifts from season to season, like use the fashion industry as a very easy visual example. Every season, there's a different color palette or a different style in. Right now, somehow the 90s are back in, and I don't know how I feel about that. There are some styles I'm okay with, but some styles I'm not. Apparently, jelly shoes are coming back in. So that's something that'll be interesting.
Girl, I own a pair of Crocs now. Now, we are not sponsored by Crocs, and I swore I would never wear a pair. They are about as close as you will ever get me into a pair of jelly shoes again in my adult life, because
Yep.
those things were scary. They were just a disaster waiting to happen.
I see when I
But
had a pair in like second grade, I loved them. They were sparkly. I thought they were the coolest things, but they rubbed my feet raw. But same, I was always against the Crocs. I now have a pair of Disney Crocs that are completely glittery, uh, of course, and I love them. So same, they're oh my God, they're comfortable. I'm sad that I resisted for so long, but also they're Disney, so how could I resist?
can you
Um,
go wrong with Disney?
right, exactly. Also not sponsored, but like, please sponsor us, Disney. um, but no, I think that that's just a good example of how the media and different things can influence our culture. And you know with fashion, whether that's a good thing or not, it is a type of grooming.
Well, one thing that I've noticed, having a younger generation in my home, is the social media that has groomed them for so much more. I'm looking at young ladies who are 12, 13, 14, looking like they're 10 years older. And not just because, I mean, I looked older because I physically developed early. But now with the contouring of the makeup and the hairstyles and having to keep up and look like all these people, oh my goodness. It's amazing to me that children are looking so much older than they should and missing out on a lot of, I mean, you need to look a little funky your freshman year of high school, damn it.
Oh my God. My freshman yearbook pictures are horrid. Horrid.
Yeah, but you look at these kids now and they're beautiful. They are well, not all of them. Some of them are still embracing their transition and they're still in their cocoon, turning into a butterfly, where they're developing into beautiful. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they're not beautiful, but as they grow into who they become in their adulthood, I believe it's happening earlier and earlier now. Whoop, there went our alarm for 30 minutes. I set one, but I forgot to turn off the timer. Good Lord.
Yeah, we're okay. Yeah, I think to what you're getting at is that part of this is that continued, I mean, it's always been there, right? That obsession to be better, be prettier, like, have more. We're kind of, as a culture, obsessed with that. But with social media, it's gotten worse. And with YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, et cetera, as much as I love those platforms, you can also learn from all of these different makeup hacks and things like that. So kids are learning how to do those things. And on one hand, win for you for learning those things that I would have been absolutely trash at anyway. But also, thinking about what that means going out into the real world. Your 14-year-old looks like she's 24, and what kind of attention is that attracting?
Exactly. What kind of attention? And again, I'm not going to down anyone's parent style and what kind of freedom you want to allow your children, but also understanding this is the world we live in. And if your child appears to be much older, prepared and have conversations with them. Make sure that they're prepared to have the conversations of the age that they are appearing to be, because not everybody is going to be respectful, unfortunately.
Right. All right. Well, that's, according to your timer, that's all the time we have for today. So, we mentioned it a couple of times, but, just as a reminder that these conversations we're having, the best thing that we want to offer is opportunities to hopefully bring to light conversations that you can have with your friends and family and spark that conversation and spark that debate. Our opinions are just that, our opinions. And while we might do some Googling, so should you. So that's where we leave you with our thoughts today on growing and grooming. And don't worry, we're probably going to come back to this topic as we do with a lot of things. But next week, we'll be talking about online dating. So definitely join us for that. That's going to be an interesting one. All right. Well, that's it for Birds, Bees, and Beyond today. Thanks so much for joining us. Take care.